It's time for the Brouhaha Sports Show. Brouhaha Sports with award-winning sports writer Dale McKee and co-host Marshall Wood. Talking sports with the legends of the game and famous sports personalities. Brouhaha! Now to Marshall and Dale with tonight's guest.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this week's version / edition / convocation, whatever you want to call it, to the Brouhaha. My partner in crime, Dale McKee. How you doing today, Dale?
I'm doing fine.
I bet you are with all this baseball going on.
Oh, yeah. Great weekend if you're a Rebel fan and going to Omaha.
Omaha. Mm-hmm. That's a good place to be this time of year.
Well, you know, they used to make fun of that Omaha for Ole Miss.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, they used to say, Ole Miss at home again.
Not this time, my friend.
No, Peyton Manning's probably very proud somewhere right now.
Well, listen, I know we're going to get to some interesting stuff. I know that you've got lined up to us. We'll talk about our guest here in a few minutes. But I tell you what, I'd just like to start with your sideline view, Dale. I mean, we're looking, of course, I'm looking at what you're talking about here, and you go through, at the first of it, you're talking about the baseball stuff. Any highlights past, Ole Miss certainly is the big highlight for us. Yes. I mean, past that before, because I think we're going to be talking about that a little more with our guest tonight, right?
Right, yes.
Okay. Let's move on down here. And I see where you looked into the college football preview, Lindy's picks. What do you think?
Yeah, football never goes away.
It never goes away. We talk about the World Series of baseball, college baseball. We talk about football, and it's 100 degrees outside. Well, what do you think? Let's see what you got. Let's see. Lindy Sports released their preseason football program. Who you reckon they got at number one again? Alabama. This is for the SEC West.
That's us.
Now listen, Alabama, A&M, Arkansas, Ole Miss. Lindy just got them up there over LSU, Mississippi State, and Auburn. Man, you probably like that.
Well, I mean, it's okay. I like for all our teams to do well.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that. Of course, I say I'm not glad, but I just put you in the middle of the pack. And the thing about it is, that 4th and 5th, that could be swapped. They got Ole Miss 4th, LSU 5th, but they play that game down at LSU. So so it could be a swap game there too.
Yeah. I had a friend of mine that was over at LSU this past weekend. My friend James Williams, called him Rat. He's real friends with the Walker family, with the Howard family, and Walker Howard's over there. They were over there visiting with Walker this weekend. He got to go into the locker room and sit in that big reclining fancy TV chair, bed, whatever you want to call it. Each player's got. It was a really nice setup, and I said, "That's your Mecca," and then he said, "Yes, sir, man. LSU, baby. He loves them." Let's look to the other side, SEC. Georgia, Tennessee. Well, did you ever think you'd talk about Tennessee being in football? They got stuff going on. The baseball program, of course, and it was number one, and until they really got to showing out and got themselves in trouble. Any comments on that?
I think that, I don't know, maybe the NCAA, maybe SEC, somebody's probably going to talk to them pretty strong again because, they kind of acted up. Their fans kind of acted up during the football season, I guess, against one team, throwing batteries and mustard and hot dogs and all that. And so, and of course, they showed themselves out the other night, too, and they act like they're proud of it.
Well, they do. And I got a problem with that, but that's another conversation. But, they've got Tennessee picked. Lindy does, behind Georgia in the East, Kentucky. And there's another Tennessee and Kentucky both over Florida. I never would have, that's some picking. Now he's stretching it on out, ain't he?
Well, see, I think one thing that favors Kentucky this year is the schedule. They play Ole Miss State this year on the West, and so that's a little bit better than having to play Alabama, A&M, LSU, folks like that. I assume that's what they're A&M. I assume that was their logic there. So Kentucky could possibly slip into second,
Yeah. It's we're going to talk. You talking about the schedule? Hopefully, in our final segment tonight, I want to talk to you a little bit about this pod business they're talking about in the SEC. I know you probably got some ideas on that. We'll get to that.
I really don't, but go ahead.
Well, you'll have some by the time we get to it, I bet you. Listen, I'm really excited about Fred McAfee. You put that in your article. He's made the New Orleans Saints Hall of Fame. I remember Fred was at Mississippi College, and my roots run pretty deep at Mississippi College, and I was excited. My daddy was a big fan of his, and I was just really excited to see him getting recognized in that capacity. That's great.
Well, they actually, Mississippi College during his time up there, I think it was '89. They won the national championship, but I think they may have.
No, easy now.
But let's don't go there.
We won the national championship, and then we dropped down to non-scholarship shortly thereafter.
He was inducted into the Mississippi Sports Hall of Fame a couple.
Go ahead, man. These are people. They're just folks. Just calm down. We'll get to you when we can.
There you go.
A little bit.
But the Mississippi Hall of Fame, Sports Hall of Fame, inducted him a couple years ago. That phone.
Trust me, one little thing gets me out of whack.
But he talked about on his recruiting visit to Mississippi College. He's first cousins with Marcus Dupree, and Marcus used to let him sell his jerseys after high school games, make a little money.
Yeah.
So, he was 5th or 6th grade when Marcus was in high school, I guess. But anyway, he talked about his recruiting trip to Mississippi College, and he got up there, and he got to eat in the cafeteria. And he was up there, and they had this ice cream machine. And he went and got some ice cream. Said, "Boy, that was good." And they said, "Well, go get you some more." And so the coaches were telling him, said, "Oh yeah, you can have that all the time. You can have all the ice cream you want."
Sign me up.
That's what he said. Sign me up. I'm sold.
Now he's a Hall of Famer. I want to be still eating ice cream.
Yeah, there you go.
I eat it too, but I never could run like that. Anyway, listen, we're getting a little long here. Tell us about our guest tonight, Dale.
Well, really, I really don't know a whole lot about John McKee Phillips, but he writes for Ole Miss for the Sports Illustrated.
Oh.
And so they have a website, and he kind of keeps up with all the Rebel stuff. So I thought he'd be a great guest for us today as far as talking about Ole Miss baseball and how they went from number 1 in the country to last in the SEC, and now they're going to Omaha. I think it's a great ride, and I know a lot of folks are probably not very happy with the Ole Miss coach, middle of the season, but I always thought, that he had been there long enough that he could show their improvement. But the biggest thing about it is the character of that team not wanting to quit.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of teams would have quit.
Yes, sir.
But they had some great senior leadership, and the Elko kid at first, and Graham in the outfield, and a few others. But for what they did with that pitching staff, because, early in the year, Coach Bianca said he didn't know who was going to be his Friday starter. He wasn't going to name one, which meant he didn't know.
Yeah.
When you don't name somebody, that means you don't have one.
Yeah.
And he's got a junior college guy in his first year and a freshman. And yesterday, that freshman from Tupelo.
Yeah.
He was awesome.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting. We're going to look forward to that, and we're going to get to our guest, Mr. John McKee Phillips, here after the break. But right now, Dale and I are going to take a break to hear from our sponsors, and we'll be back with tonight's guest right after the break.
Phillips Building Supply in Laurel, your hometown building supply store since 1954. We are locally owned and pride ourselves on helping our customers find exactly what they need. From foundations to roofs to doors and windows, Phillips has it. For tools, hardware, lumber, and plywood, visit Phillips Building Supply.
Hello, John. How are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
We doing good. Of course, you know my sidekick Marshall, and of course I'm Dale. I know we've never had the pleasure of meeting, but we do follow your writing, and you got some good endorsements from some people. So we want to talk a little about Ole Miss baseball today. Why don't you just start us like the first chapter of the season, into the second, into the final chapter. Just give us what you think about this Ole Miss team for 2022.
Well, it was really roller coaster is the best word I would use to describe it. I mean, it started off, this team was really highly thought of coming into the year, got as highly ranked as number 1 in the country, and then SEC play hit, and it was really kind of obvious that this team had a pitching problem early in the year, early in conference play. And that's kind of when, for lack of a better term, the bottom fell out. As the team really kind of stalled. I believe they were 7-14 in conference play at one point before the ship was turned around. And really, I would say the ship was turned around more so in regional play. I mean, first round exit in Hoover, that game going on into Wednesday morning because of rain delays and everything. So really, I mean, this team went from dead in the water, especially in May, to this extremely impressive, quick turnaround just in the last 2 weeks, and it's really something that I personally didn't see coming. I don't know if that reflects badly on me or not, but everyone else on the beat too didn't really see it coming either. So.
That's monumental. I mean, how in the world? I mean, you got the same players, you got the same coaches. I mean, there's so much intangible stuff. I mean, how can you explain such just a miraculous turnaround?
Well, I really think that late in the year, obviously there's a big focus on the offense and the numbers that they've put up over the last couple of days, but really Ole Miss figured out its pitching problem. They found Dylan DeLucia and Hunter Elliott for their Friday and Saturday combination. Sunday was still kind of up in the air. There late in the year, Derek Diamond has been inconsistent at times, but that 1-2 punch opening the weekend, I think, with DeLucia and Elliott really took some pressure off of the offense. So I really think that the turnaround can be brought back to starting pitching, and also just the bullpen has been fantastic in these last few weeks. No earned runs allowed the last two weekends of postseason play, and so while the offense has looked better in recent weeks, I actually give more credit to Bianco and the staff figuring out the pitching situation more so than that.
Well, you talk about, they did get extremely hot there in the Miami regionals. I think that surprised a lot of people, especially that last game that they beat Arizona, a team that had beat them last year. But I was looking at their schedule, and since May the 1st, they're 13-3, and 2 of the losses were to Texas A&M, and the other one was to Vanderbilt. So, that was in the tournament there. So once you look back at that schedule, they didn't play bad in some of those games they were losing. Like, I remember they lost a couple close games to Mississippi State. One of them was an extra inning, like 11-inning game maybe, something like that. But how did he discover these guys like Dylan and Hunter? Were they the mid-week starters before he moved them into the Friday and Saturday role?
They were really some weekend bullpen pieces, and I think it really just kind of got to a point where, Derek Diamond came into the year as the Friday night starter, and obviously none of that original rotation was working out, and so he really just kind of had no choice but to kind of plug and play different pieces and just kind of see who could give them some length to start a game, because there was a stretch there early in conference play where none of the starting pitchers lasted 5 innings or more. So I mean he really just had no choice but to find somebody who could give them some form of consistent length to start a baseball game, and it just so happened that the combination of Dylan DeLucia and Hunter Elliott proved to not only give them length, but to be pretty good at keeping runs off the board too. So I really think it turned into a trial and error type situation there.
Yeah, I think the first time I really even noticed Dylan was against Mississippi State on that Thursday night game where he pitched. I don't know if he pitched a complete game, but he had like 115 pitches that night, and I think the next week he even did really well at Arkansas. And so that kind of spearheaded him to get people to kind of know who he was, because everybody knew he was a first-year player there, even though he'd been to JUCO, things like that. Tell us about the seniors on this team, the leadership from, say, an Elko or a Graham, or can you name some of the other seniors for us?
Yeah, well, I think you hit the main two on the head right there. And obviously, I wrote a little bit yesterday about Tim Elko fittingly catching the pop-up that ended the game yesterday that sent Ole Miss to Omaha. And, obviously I feel like everybody in the country knows Tim Elko's story now, coming back from the torn ACL last year and the amazing run he's had in the postseason this year. But really, Kevin Graham, his comeback from injury this year, his wrist injury that he suffered against UCF, that really helped bring the offense back into what a lot of people thought they would be before the season started. Without Kevin Graham in the lineup, this offense was night and day from the expectations coming into the year and what they were even a season ago. The Rebels really missed his production in the lineup while he was gone. So really, we've done a lot of interviews both with Graham and Elko, and it's obvious that not only are they talented players, but they've been really good presence in the clubhouse as well, especially for some of these younger players that have wound up playing a vital role in this late run.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. And, a couple other guys that's, I've always thought a lot about the catcher, Dunkhurst. He just does such a fantastic job behind the plate back there. I just watch his gloves sometime, and it almost looks like he's stealing strikes from the batter, the way he can maneuver his glove. And he's come on hitting a little bit better here of late. But another guy that really is the Newton County Academy DH and the Alterman kid, I believe that's his last name, and he seems to have provided them a good punch, especially this past weekend. But, just looking at that whole lineup, were you kind of surprised of who he played at third base this on Saturday and Sunday? Ole Miss?
Garrett Wood?
Yes. I mean, that was kind of surprised. First game he started or second game he started all year?
Yes. He really was kind of thrown into the mix because of an injury to T.J. McCants in center field. They had to shift Justin Bench from third base to center. And so somebody obviously has to play the hot corner. And I think, and Mike Bianco has said this himself. He said, it's kind of a next man up mentality. And I believe one of his quotes this past weekend was, good things happen to good people. And that's certainly the case for Garrett Wood. That he is a really energetic guy in the dugout. He's, very uplifting, very supportive of all of his teammates, even though he hasn't had a lot of playing time. But it's paid off for him, right? I mean, he's looked good defensively, and obviously he's come through with some really clutch hits, both in Coral Gables and at Hattiesburg the last 2 weekends. So, sometimes with turnarounds like this, there's an unexpected guy who comes in and makes a big impact like that. And I think Garrett Wood is really the poster child for that phenomenon with this thing.
Sure, and he was batting ninth Saturday in the game that I witnessed, and he, his batting average didn't look that great on the scoreboard out there, and you'd think, well, he's not going to bring a lot to the table, but he ended up with 3 walks and a double. And so they couldn't have, the old theory in baseball, 7, 8, 9, get on, 1, 2, 3, knock them in. That was kind of the mentality Saturday, and they came up with some such clutch hits. What did you think turned that series around? Because going into it, everybody said the Southern Miss pitching was just so dominant, and they've got some good pitchers now. At times, their defense looked like they were just kind of, off a little bit. But what was there a turning point in that series at all, a play or anything?
I think there were a couple of things. One, I do think that it's possible that there were some nerves there at Southern Miss with it being the first super regional in school history, that kind of thing, and just pressure there, sort of. But two, I think Ole Miss just really at the plate put together some really good at bats, even if it didn't result in a hit or a run scoring in the early innings. They were getting guys on. They were, for the most part, able to be patient at the plate. some at bats from Kemp Alderman especially come into mind over this past weekend, and really I think that's a credit to Mike Clement, the hitting coach, who Bianco even gave credit to him this weekend for kind of setting the team down, kind of going through scouting reports, all the usual type stuff too, but making adjustments on the fly during a game based on what a pitcher has working and what he doesn't. So that's really what I would give the credit to offensively. There was Mike Clement's impact.
I got you. Well, listen, did there anything surprise you about it all? Have you seen, since you're a beat writer and you're up there a lot and you've talked to the other beat writers, was there anything that you think actually turned this season around when they swept Missouri that weekend and sweeps goes down to Hattiesburg and beat Southern Miss during the regular season game, and then go to LSU? Was there anything in that turnaround that just stuck out to you?
The midweek win over Mississippi State, I think, really kind of served as a turning point. Sure, it was a midweek game, and doesn't carry the same weight as a weekend conference series. But even some of the players, after the sweep down in Baton Rouge, said, we kind of see that game as a turning point because they were able to win that. Get really kind of a confidence boost, sweeping a scuffling, I guess, Missouri team. And then it just seemed like they loosened up after that. They were able to get some wins over some conference opponents under their belt and kind of take a breath. And that's when they were able to play more loose. Or that's the way it was perceived by me. And, the players have been able to attest to that as well. But that Governor's Cup game in Pearl against Mississippi State really, I think, served as kind of a catalyst that, we've seen this turnaround since then, and it has propelled them all the way to Omaha, and that's one of the crazy things about baseball. Sometimes it's a little thing here, it's a little thing there, it's one game here or there, and even a midweek game, can serve to be something like that. So.
Well, that's it. I mean, they've got their goal set now. They've reached one of their goals, their final goal, probably going to the World Series. So, do you think this team can, the bracket that they're in with Oregon State or Auburn or Stanford or Connecticut, do you think they can compete with those guys pretty solidly from the information?
I do, actually.
Okay.
I think that this side of the bracket is, I don't know if favorable is the right word, because once you reach Omaha, I mean, all the teams you're going to face are good, right?
Yes.
But I do think that this is a bracket that Ole Miss can definitely be competitive in, this side of the bracket. Mm-hmm. And also, we have to think that looking at Omaha as a whole, not having Tennessee there opens it up, I think, for any and everybody, all 8 teams that'll be there. That's a change that not a lot of people saw coming. With Notre Dame's upset with the Vols.
I don't think anybody did with Notre Dame. Yeah. Well, anyway. Well, listen, we're getting near on our time, and we really appreciate your time, and you gave us a great detailed look at the Ole Miss Rebels. But tell us how our people can keep up with your writing, Twitter account, and just what you have.
Okay. You can follow me on Twitter at JMake, Jmake Gillespie, and obviously, go to thegrovereport.com, part of the Sports Illustrated Network, to keep up with everything that I write and that our wonderful and talented staff puts out together as well.
We sure do appreciate you being with us and all that you do for Mississippi and covering the Rebels, and we thank you for your time. We're going to take a quick break to hear from some of our sponsors, and we'll be back with the final segment right after this break.
Phillips Building Supply in Laurel, your hometown building supply store since 1954. We are locally owned and pride ourselves on helping our customers find exactly what they need. From foundations to roofs to doors and windows, Phillips has it. For tools, hardware, lumber, and plywood, visit Phillips Building Supply.
Welcome back, everyone, to our final segment tonight. I tell you what, Mr. Gillespie, he's
really good.
He's good.
He told us all about the roller coaster he's been on.
Yeah. You know, I want to talk to you a little bit about, Ole Miss. This is not a, flash in the pan kind of out of nowhere kind of deal with this Rebel baseball team. I mean, you look back over the past few years, and you helped me out here, but I mean, I think they might have made a super regional. Then when the COVID hit, they were like 16-1, and haven't they been to the super?
Okay, yeah.
Talk us through the last 4 or 5 years.
Well, I just know that this year is the third super regional they've been to. That's
in a
been
row?
Played. Yeah, that's been played, and they're one of the few teams in the country that's ever done that, like 3 straight super regionals. Like there's like maybe 4 others, and I can't remember who they are, but I was reading this last night in one of the press releases that there's like only 4 teams that's done that, and there's not many teams that's gone through a super regional and shut out their opponents in 2 games. I don't think that's happened since like 1999 or something. So they did some not ordinary things, in this run they've had. But I still go back to the coach and the character of the team and them not giving up. And you always got your goals out there.
Yeah.
And just because you lose a game or 2 doesn't mean that your goals are done with. You just don't want people to tell you they're done with. Don't let somebody else tell you that you can't do something.
There you go.
Without at least trying,
Yeah.
And every day is a different game. But, were they fortunate? Yes. I'm sitting there in a ball game Saturday. It's 3-0 Ole Miss. USM has the bases loaded.
Come on with it.
And Ewan kid hits one down the left field line. Well, from my angle, I could see it going foul, but I couldn't tell if it was
before or after.
But the people out there in the roost section of right field at Southern, they weren't fussing when they called it foul.
Yeah.
So it led you to believe, that it was a foul ball. But they had like a 5-minute deal on it, and it probably took them some time to figure it out. Yeah. But that was the key play, or it had been 4-3 in the first game. So you don't know what's going to happen. But I think USM, what hurt them Sunday in that ball game that they played was that they never could get a lead on Ole Miss. Ole Miss always stayed ahead and kind of was controlling things. So it was, but now Southern Miss.
There's their fan base coming. Y'all just hang in there with us.
Southern Miss had such a great season. Scott Berry is such a fine man.
Yeah.
You just hate it for the USM program, but you got to be so proud of the Ole Miss program, and now they get to represent Mississippi. And the thing about having, and it may be the first time in NCAA history, it's probably not, that 2 teams from the same state were playing for the super regional title. I mean, it's probably happened before, but I was just glad that we have a team up there. And you know what? Southern may want to go up there next year.
You think?
Yeah.
Let me ask you this. Now, Ole Miss is going to Omaha. What they going to run into up there? How's it? Do they know who they're going to be playing? And who's
not
what?
Really. Well, as we tape this show, Auburn and Oregon State have to play their final game.
Yeah.
And of course, Ole Miss beat Auburn 2 out of 3. And I believe in the other bracket, it's Stanford and Connecticut against Arkansas.
Okay.
So it'll probably be Stanford and Arkansas in one. And, the tournament starts Friday. So I know all eyes will be on our television sets to some of us that don't have extra. You got any extra money I could borrow to go up there?
Money.
I've never been to Omaha.
Extra
now,
money.
I've heard Peyton say it a lot, but I've never been there.
That's a concept I don't have any know anything about
Crew.
extra money.
Okay.
But I tell you this, I know one thing is that we're out of time.
Oh no!
Yeah,
Come
we're
on,
out of time.
Man.
Yeah.
I was getting on a roll, man.
Oh, man, you were.
I was gonna say, "Hey, Mom," but I can't say that now.
Well, don't sell yourself short. You may have a chance. Remember that you can keep up with the Brouhaha on Facebook and on YouTube at the Brouhaha, and we appreciate you being with us. And we'll be back next week, same Brouhaha time, same Brouhaha channel. But for now, it's time to say goodbye, Dale.
Goodbye, Dale.
See you next week for more Brouhaha. Take us out of here, Jamie.
You've been listening to the Brouhaha with Dale McKee and Marshall Wood. Heard Tuesday evening, 6 p.m. on WABO. For more of the Brouhaha, follow us during the week on Facebook and WABO.